And of course, in 2025, if you don't have an AI strategy at some point, and I'm sure we'll get to that topic because every technology conversation has that. If you don't have that as a strategy, which we didn't have, then it makes it tough.
Welcome to Tech Teams Today, where we talk with the people building and leading the engineering orgs behind today's most innovative companies. Today's guest is Paul Cannon, CTO at Healthcare IT Leaders, where he leads a team of engineers who are helping hospitals and healthcare companies achieve their technology goals. You're going to learn why he thinks reliability can actually be more important than being cutting edge. You're going to learn how he's had to adjust his leadership style through a few years of very fast-paced change and how he's handling the impact of AI in the hiring process. Before we dive in, if you wouldn't mind, do me a quick favor. Hit like and subscribe. It really helps make sure that other engineering leaders find the episode, and it will make sure that you don't miss any future ones. Let's dive in. All right. So Paul, thanks for joining us. It's just great to have you on here. And I think this first batch of questions is about learning more about your team, about Healthcare IT Leaders as well. So can you first maybe tell us about Healthcare IT Leaders, what you guys do, who are your customers?
Yeah, Healthcare IT Leaders, I guess you kind of consider us a startup. Been at this for 12 years and certain fashions. Primarily for the last 12 years have been staff augmentation. So we've really a client and healthcare needs a body. We help fill that need and we've got a good reputation in that space. So been a leader in that space for quite some time. Last year, about this time, we delved into a bigger space of that. And so what we're branding is continuous services. It's really a managed services, but with a technology flavor on top of it. So in a managed services business, we run all their support for their tickets. So we will do Epic, we'll do Cerner Oracle, we'll do Workday, we'll do UKG. So where we kind of really have a niche is really being able to support anything that you want to do from an EHR and ERP. So exciting, busy times for us in that continuous services space, and as well as staffing as it kind of grows and grows.
Great. Now let's talk about your engineering team. How is it structured right now? And how has it changed over the past 18 to 24 months?
Yeah, so I came here, so maybe even a little more background on that first question. So I came here in August, September of last year, really with the idea from our CEO to build out this managed services organization. He had an excellent leader in Jody Bookman, kind of already leading that group, but Jody and Ben kind of saw a need for a technology flavor. So at Healthcare IT Leaders, running a staff augmentation business, they didn't really need any of that at the time. So it's running on Salesforce, and you had a few engineers here and there doing that in the background. And so come along, we need monitoring systems, and we need ability to improve SQL, and a lot of the things that we want to go fine tune. And of course, in 2025, if you don't have an AI strategy at some point, and I'm sure we'll get to that topic because every technology conversation has that. If you don't have that as a strategy, which we didn't have, then it makes it tough. So team has really grown, and you could say it even started about this time last year. So we've really put on the full court press. We're hiring about between 3 and 4 people a quarter to go ahead and do that. I think part of the issue is we're growing so fast, but then you don't want to overshoot. And so kind of when I mentioned that we're in startup, again, this is a company that's built a great brand reputation on the staff aug side, but nothing really on the professional services or continuous services side. So now as we build those pieces out and have that breadth, so that's where we're going. So
cool. And are you guys mostly remote? Are you hybrid? Are you in office?
Yeah, I'm in office now. So we actually have an office in Kansas City. So we actually have multiple offices. So our headquarters is in Alpharetta, Georgia, where the company started. So I mentioned a lot of that staff aug business. A lot of staff aug and recruiters are out of that office. And we're building this continuous services, and we call it the Center of Excellence that we're building out of Kansas City. So we just acquired a big floor up on a third floor in what's called the old Sprint campus here in town. And it's really, we actually have moved from the first floor, which was a 10,000 square foot one last October. In September of this year, we tripled that. We moved to a 30,000. I mean, like that's kind of the piece that we're growing at, which is all great. But as an engineer, you're like, let me harden something just a little bit before we take off. But I've got a number of engineers also that are remote, and so that's great. Like, and we'll get together quarterly or semi-annually where we'll have a big in-office meeting that actually is happening in the first week in November. So little mix of hybrid, and for me personally, I'm in office probably 4 or 5 days a week if I'm not traveling, but most days in office.
Okay. And heading into 2026, do you see that pace of change and that pace of growth staying the same? Or do you think at some point things are going to stabilize?
Well, I guess it depends on who you ask, probably. You ask the sales team and they think they're always growing in that fashion. Again, because the market is really hot for EHR, ERP. I come from an EHR background, 20 plus years at Cerner. And so that was kind of my background for there. And then so to come into when Ben had asked to come over here to do some work, it was like, yeah, I can do EHR stuff in my sleep, but the sell piece really was for us is that ERP. That's the piece for me, is like that's a growing place, and what we're going to go do. So do I think we'll continue to grow? Gosh, it hasn't slowed down since I've been here, as much as I've hoped it would to some extent, but it hasn't. And depending on who you ask, that's a good thing. So I would hedge my bet and say that I think it will probably continue at this pace for sure.
That's awesome. And you said you've been hiring at a very fast pace.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about what you're seeing in the hiring market right now. Volume, availability of talent, quality, even maybe fake resumes, ghost candidates, AI interviews that, you're interviewing an avatar. Any of that stuff happening to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of pieces there. I do see it, yes, which is crazy to me. Like, I'm still the guy that remembers sitting down, walking into my first interview, all suited up from college, and it being in a hot summer day because, it was May, June. And so you walk in and full on suit, and that certainly has gone by the wayside with these virtual type of discussions. So yeah, we certainly do see it. I think what I've seen in the industry now are a couple of things. One is our clients, people in IT are trying to wait out AI. Oh, what do we go do? Do we hire bodies? Do we bring in bots? Is AI enough to gain efficiencies where we don't have to hire? I think there are those people that are waiting and seeing. We're not in a wait and see mode. We're in a hire mode, in that growth piece of kind of what we want to go do. Clients are just kind of pushing for those. So, so two things there as I'm rambling on. Two things to that piece. Because we were a staff augmentation business, first and foremost, we have a great recruiting firm that has built that process around it. So we have that arm. I mean, healthcare IT leaders helps clients to the tune of 700 bodies a year. So we will staff 700 associates for clients in any of those capacities that I kind of mentioned earlier, and others, Meditech, et cetera, Athena. So we'll do those for all those clients. So we already had a strong recruiting arm with some of those pieces. The other thing that's been really nice for me as an engineering leader, and it's not nice for the others, but has been the market. I mean, because people are cutting in certain places, the market has been saturated to some extent with really, really good talent. Here in Kansas City specifically, Oracle purchased Cerner, where I came from, and there are a number of people that make cuts from Cerner all the time. Well, those are people that know healthcare. And for me personally, like if you know healthcare, I can teach you the code. I mean, what's it to move from Python to Java, right? Those are easy leaps. The hard part is understanding the workflows and the struggles that our clients face. So we get a lot of the Cerner folks as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned the pace at which you're hiring, so that's not easy to keep up with. And have you made any changes or adaptations to be able to hire at that pace and still maintain quality?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now, you asked the question a little bit earlier, do I envision it going out? And I do. The further we go on along with this, it will become a problem for us in that capacity. Right now, the relationships that we've had with people have allowed us to go into that network and hire from within our network. So if we've got a team of 10 engineers, each person brings along one person, we're able to double pretty quickly, just based off of skill set of somebody that we've used at a previous place. And so right now, we're really leveraging our networks. But, again, your network can only be so big at a certain time. The other thing that I would say for us that is a little bit unique, because we're so highly invested in kind of what we're doing, our CEO has really allowed us to invest in the top quality. And I don't mean everybody says they have the top quality. When I say that, I mean that we've got an average tenure on my team of over 20 years. So we're really investing heavily up front. At some point, we're going to have to get to those junior devs. And we get to a college guy and gal, and what do you do there? So we haven't reached that point yet, because we're adding 3 to 4 bodies every quarter. But when we get to 60, when we get to that kind of number, we're going to have to. We can't continue to hire at the 20+ year model. We're going to have to certainly sprinkle some of the juniors in as well.
And so we're 10 minutes into our conversation, and that was the first time I'm talking about AI, so I've been holding back. So my question is, AI can do a lot of the scaffolding, right? It can build a lot of the boilerplate code, some of the boring parts of the job, like documentation, testing, test coverage.
Yep.
And with that, AI has kind of been weaponized during hiring processes, like interview processes. Candidates using it to get through technical screens and whatnot. How do you still assess technical depth? How do you get that signal out from the noise? And what do you look for?
Yeah, it's really tough. Long are the days where you could send home a little bit of code to have them review it and know that it came back and it was them. So we've really struggled. I mean, and I think we're going to continue to struggle. I think the education system has struggled in the same way, to where they know that tests and papers themselves aren't generated by AI. I think, they have the mantra of hire slowly, fire quickly type of deal. And I think that's probably going to be more and more the case, where you find out. I don't understand the concept. And this is where, like, for me, again, we've been fortunate. When you hire somebody that's experienced 20 years, you have an expectation. You hire somebody that says that they're junior, that they've been doing it 2 years, they come in and they can probably make their way through for the first few weeks. But I'm not one, for my style is, I'm not one to have to sit around and check every piece of what you go do. And as a result, if we find that multiple projects wouldn't happen to be done at the same fashion that we would expect, then we would probably address that more quickly than maybe we would have in the past. So I think the leash, maybe if AI has done anything, you probably hire, probably reversed it a little bit. You probably hire a little quicker. So the idea of hiring slowly, firing quickly, you probably, both of those are probably sped up. You probably hire a little more quickly than you would have before, because at the end of the day, you almost have to trust. And because you're not going to get a true representation potentially of what they're worth until day one.
Yeah. And then you probably churn them out in faster pace as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Unfortunately, I think that will end up being the fault of AI, will be that, somebody may have lied about what they're capable of to get in. And this is where I feel like I'm fortunate. I've got 3 older kids, 2 that are adulting now, as we call it. Got big purses jobs, and just to kind of get noticed in some cases is really, really hard for them at this point. And so and everybody's answer is, "Well, I didn't make it through the algorithm." And and so I think there's a perception of that today, where they don't know what people are looking for, And this is where I go back to kind of what we were talking about a little bit earlier, which is it's really that network. And we tell that to our kids all the time. I'll repeat, is when you're that kid and that you're COVID, you don't have that network because you really never were around people. And it's kind of been every person for themselves.
That's a great take. Yep. We're seeing a wave of junior devs who actually started their careers coding with AI, coding with copilots from day one. So yes, we don't want that to be presented as their own work during the interview process, but it is a tool, right? It is something that they're going to use during their day-to-day. But specifically in the case of the junior devs, like entry-level talent, do you see that as an advantage for that generation? Maybe a crutch or something in between?
Yeah, it's a good question, and obviously time will tell. But I do think it's if I had to look at it from a guy that's been doing it for 25 plus years, I feel like it's a disadvantage. I've heard a number of folks say on different podcasts or trainings that they feel like the idea of an engineer itself is going to go away. In fact, I think I've heard on this podcast even the idea of a true engineer or senior dev engineer will go away, and there'll be product managers. A product manager will kind of elevate to a different role. And so I think that's where, for us as long timers on our team today, we have that experience to kind of bring along with it of someone not that just knows the code and knows the structure, knows where you need to be, but also knows the workflows that we're trying to solve for and the pain points that the client's trying to solve for. So I think not having that base knowledge will be tough for those folks, just because, I deal with it with my wife, and she's not a technical person, and as I walk her through things, and she doesn't know the questions to ask. So even if AI was applicable for her, she doesn't know the questions to ask and the follow-up questions to ask and the follow-up questions to ask. And I think that's one of the things that you see with AI or the chatbots or whatever. They miss out on those things. And I think about it with Copilot. For us, we use Copilot primarily. Claude is our AI of choice. But we do use Copilot within our Microsoft suite. And, when you get the summarization of emails, I think to myself, that's great that it summarized everything that I missed yesterday. But it gave me what I think it wanted. You know what I mean? So like the devil's in the details, like I missed something that I'm going to now respond in a fashion that lets someone on the other side of this know that, or at least leads them to believe that I read their email when really I read a Cliff Notes version.
Summary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let's stay on that topic for a minute. So you said that your tool of choice is Claude. And we see a lot of data showing that AI adoption inside engineering teams is high, but they don't really trust the output. Mm-hmm. It's not production grade yet.
Yeah.
What do you think you'd need to see from those tools? And you can use Claude as an example before you'd feel comfortable calling it production grade.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see as well. I think that engineers are by nature, I think we're introverts. I think we're skeptical. I think we're problem solvers. That's kind of what drove us to this role in this industry. I kind of harken back to the pilot, right? We've had autopilot for how long? It's been years and years and years, and it works great, and we know how accurate it is, and we know what it does, but we still don't take the human out of that loop, right? And so, physicians, we deal with physicians all the time. Physicians love the idea of AI helping them. But how much will they give up? I think that's where it comes to us as engineers as well. How much are we willing to give up? But I think it depends on the person. I'll give you a little anecdotal story about, previous role, worked for a company that was also a startup. They were looking to do a number of things, came in there to do some stuff. And we had a leader, and this is kind of where it comes back to some of the leader stuff. We had a leader that really didn't know how to use AI. Went in and used AI as a kind of the example scenario that you used of helping fill out documentation. Well, what they did was they put together a 15-page report on an engineering process that they didn't have any idea of. And so here as engineers, we're going through and we're vetting it. And the comment was, hey, please give your feedback, open to feedback. But if you don't know that it's generated by AI, you're very sensitive. I'm sure we've all done code reviews before. And when you do a code review, you're sensitive to the fact that somebody else on the other side of this actually wrote that code. And so while you want to be critical because it's important before it gets released, you also want to be empathetic for the fact that it could very well be your code next time that's taking the beating. Anyway, point of the story is you get to the end of this document and she had forgotten to take out, it's been generated by ChatGPT. And so we read through this whole article and it was redlined throughout. And it's like, gosh, you just go through and you hope that people understand that their brand, as they use the AI, their brand is it. So I think engineers are always going to be skeptical, I guess would be my point. I don't think you're ever going, I think they'll use it for the things that you talked about, doing the things. I think more is going to get pushed back to the engineer too. I mean, instead of doing doc development from an individual role, I think a lot of that will get pushed back to the engineer as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. That's definitely not the push that the AI labs are making, right? They're trying to make it production ready, and they're trying to encourage adoption and all those fancy demos that show people one-shotting apps. But yeah, the reality in enterprise is that adoption takes time and adoption takes trust. Right?
Yeah.
And that as you mentioned, takes a lot of work with engineers. Do you think there's anything that engineering leaders are getting wrong in how they're rolling out AI to their teams?
I think training, kind of similar to the example that I used before. I mean, I think training is, and I think a lot of that depends on where you're at. So back to your, will engineers trust it? I also think that a lot of that depends probably on your age. I think you get somebody that's been at it 25 years is probably a little less trusting of AI than someone that, they've never had a life without a co-pilot. So I think, that level of trust may be a little bit different as well. But I think training is probably the big thing that I would say. I think you can, there's probably that happy medium. You got people that will use it to replace them, which I tell people all the time, like, AI shouldn't replace you. It should be a tool to only enhance. And, you get some people that will regurgitate that line, but they don't really believe it. The next sentence they're using, AI to go out and send this 15-page document to a client that they haven't even reviewed. And then because they trust it, right? And so that's kind of where the training would go. Then maybe on the other end where you get the engineers that say, this can't be done as well as I could do it. And I think there's some sort of lack of humility in that scenario where they think I can't be replaced by AI. And the reality is, I bet if you did a little quick Google search, that you'd find out that it's really good.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about engineering leadership in general and how it's being transformed by so many factors. AI is one of them, but remote work, economic turbulence, ups and downs.
Yeah.
Have you had to adjust your leadership style through all these changes?
So to your question, I think probably the biggest thing that I've had to adjust maybe through leadership style changes would be more around being more transparent. I think I've always been, my wife and kids will probably tell you I'm too honest in many cases. But I think it's easy to make a human connection when you're in the office with people. You can break bread. You can go to lunch and have a great time with somebody and they know what you're about. It doesn't have to be just about being in the office for work. I think that a lot of times when we talk about the hybrid situation or the remote work, one of the things we do miss is that idea of lunchtime. I mean, I remember when I first started, gosh, it's okay, where are we going to lunch today? And that was kind of those pieces. So I think in a situation now where you have so many people that are remote, and you have the feeling of AI is going to replace us, those kinds of thoughts around, I think that the transparency is even gone up a notch, where I feel like probably I'm oversharing some cases where I wouldn't have maybe shared or put that put that out there, if you will, years ago, just for the sheer fact of you don't need to worry about it. That's my job to worry about that, not your job to worry about that kind of thing. So maybe sharing a little more.
Okay. And looking back, do you think there are any key moments in your career that shaped how you lead today?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that, having done it for 25 years, I'm not sure that there's been maybe one inflection point that's changed what I've done, but, hundreds of intercessions where they say you make thousands of decisions a day. And so I think that I would say early on in my career, becoming a leader, I took a lot on. So I went from, I was fortunate enough to be able to go through the ranks, and I went from a individual contributor to the team lead within a couple of years. And I think, one of the things I learned from that was that you can't serve two masters. You can't continue to be an individual contributor at the level that I was and also be the leader. And I think that was, as an engineer, probably more so than any role. I feel like an engineer, we just always want to get our hands dirty, right? And so I think it was really hard for me to give up that control early on. But you learn that you can't, and you learn that you can't do it. And so I think that was one thing that I learned. I think another thing that I learned was in that same phase, it's hard sometimes going from a peer to a leader. Sometimes it's easier to go from one team to the next and lead the next team. Certainly you lose that skill and what got you the job, the team lead, if you will, in that role. But, a week ago, these were people that thought of you on the same level as them. And you thought of yourself on the same level. And so having to make that adjustment, I think was a little bit hard. It's kind of like parenting a kid. You don't want to be their friend. You want to be their parent. And if you view them as a peer, as a friend, then you're doing them a disservice. And so it didn't take me too long to realize that I was doing my team a disservice of thinking them as a friend still, as a peer. But it's hard to not lose that human connection.
Yeah, I think that last bit is actually a great piece of advice for anyone who's thinking about moving into leadership, like engineers who are thinking of taking that step. Realizing that by treating them as your friends or as your peers, you're doing them a disservice. I think that's a great take. Let's move into our final section here, Paul. And if I want to challenge you a little bit, I want to hear contrarian takes. If you had to share a contrarian take, something that most engineering leaders might disagree with, but you actually believe in, what do you think that would be?
I would say that you don't have to always be cutting edge. I think that we live in a day today where you think that I've got to follow the technology, and we had people all the time that were, wanting to chase the new level of whatever it was. And I think that you see really what end users tend to appreciate more is stability. We see that in the EHR world with Epic versus Cerner in the day. You see that in the auto industry with Toyota. Reliability almost always beats cutting edge, but as people, engineers especially, we want to show our mettle, and so I think that's cutting edge doesn't always win out. I guess would be maybe for engineers a contrarian take.
Awesome, I love that. Paul, this has been a great conversation. How can our listeners follow you? Are you active on Twitter or LinkedIn? Where can they find you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably where I'm most active. We do at Healthcare IT Leaders. We do a Leader to Leader podcast, and I've stepped in for our CEO on a couple of occasions there. But LinkedIn is probably where I'm most active.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time. It was great having you.
Lucas, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
That was Paul Cannon, CTO at Healthcare IT Leaders. If you found this helpful, follow Tech Teams Today wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a rating or comment with your favorite takeaway and share it with another engineering leader who'd get value from it. Tech Teams Today is brought to you by Revelo. We're helping U.S. companies find, hire, and pay full-time engineers based in Latin America, vetted, time zone aligned, and ready to start shipping code. I'm Lucas Mendes. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.